Hello, namaskar, everyone. Welcome back to Everything Kosher. My name is Siddhi Rana, your host for today and also the director of KOA Youth. Today, we're delving into a crucial aspect of our Kashmiriyat, Kashmiri Shaivism. I'm excited to have Mr. Vijay Dhar with us today. There are also some very exciting announcements we will be sharing. But before we jump in, Vijayji, could you briefly introduce yourself and share how Kashmiri Shaivism became a part of your life? Has it been there from the beginning, your time in Kashmir, or is this like a recent discovery?
Yeah, okay. Thank you and namaskar, Siddhi. I really appreciate you taking the time to facilitate this channel for me to connect to the KOA Youth Network. Let me go ahead and start a quick introduction, and I will touch upon my life in Kashmir and outside Kashmir, and also put in the context of Kashmiri Shaivism, also my journey, my professional and educational journey a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I spent my early years in Kashmir, till the 11th grade. And I went to Delhi, studied physics and electronics engineering. Basically, it was chip manufacturing at IIT Delhi. And then I worked in India for about 16 years, setting up a couple of factories or pilot factories in chip manufacturing in Chandigarh and Hyderabad for ISRO and for DRDO, Defense Research Organization. And then in 1993, I moved to the United States. And this was after the exodus that happened in Kashmir. And my parents had decided to move out of India after the exodus. And I kind of stayed out of Kashmir for a long time after that. But I used to always dream about Kashmir. And my daughter, she just one day told me that, hey, you have to get Kashmir out of your system, and held me by my collar and took me to Kashmir.
Yeah.
So we went to Kashmir, and instead of taking it out of my system, it actually made it more ingrained. And I actually went to Kashmir 7 times after that.
Wow.
This is 2009. So I went to Kashmir 7 times after 2009 because it kind of attracted me more rather than repelling me, rather than kind of getting it out of my system. So, in India, in US, I worked in the chip manufacturing. Most of the years, 27 years, I worked at Intel Corporation as an engineer, working in making those Pentium chips in the beginning, and then doing other stuff and process control and technology transfers and stuff, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And while in parallel, I was kind of also going back to Kashmir often and getting more and more interested in everything Kashmiri. And in that process, I visited several shrines, and I found that there was so much in the history of those shrines that was related to our rich heritage. And I kind of particularly got attracted to Kashmiri Shaivism because of its relevance to the current times. So yeah, that's basically my journey, and in a brief, like 5-minute journey for 5-minute introduction to my journey about Kashmir and about my professional life.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much. I think this podcast, I'm hoping we're able to get a little more into that. I always love hearing stories about time in Kashmir, how people came out of the genocide and the exodus. So I think just flashback to a couple of days back, I threw up a question on our Instagram story for our followers to ask us if they had any questions regarding Kashmiri Shaivism. And one of the questions we actually got was, what is Kashmiri Shaivism? Which I think is a great starting point for today's podcast. So if Vijayji, if you want to give us some insight on what is Kashmiri Shaivism, and we can just go into the podcast with that.
Yeah, sure. I think I would say that Kashmiri Shaivism is just a sophisticated version of Shaivism in general in India. So India, Shaivism has evolved over 5,000 years. It's part of Rig Vedas and all the Advaita, Advaita philosophy that Vivekananda and all preached. But Kashmir took it to a very high level of sophistication. And that level of sophistication, where they introduced a lot more rigor and a lot more, lot better sophisticated models to depict reality. And then basically showed paths to how to reach that reality, how to realize that reality. You know, which is basically realization of the self, or self-realization. So those additional aspects, those additional models that were added to the already existing philosophy is called Kashmiri Shaivism. So it's not that it was only confined to Kashmir, but it was developed mostly in Kashmir by a few very high level of scholarship, which happened in the 10th and 11th century. So those few schools of Shaivism are called Kashmiri Shaivism, but there are like 9 schools of Shaivism, or they're also called Tantra. So there's 3 of those schools are actually called Kashmiri Shaivism.
Yeah. So I think you brought this thing up that it's not particularly pertained to Kashmiri Shaivism, but it was like founded or something there. I think a question I have here is that I've heard a lot that Kashmiri Shaivism is not just followed by Kashmiris or by Hindus. There are many philosophers who also use this. Do you have any insight to share on that? That how has Kashmiri Shaivism become such a big topic for someone to speak about who is not Hindu themselves?
Yeah, it is true. Actually, the fact is that my journey in pursuing this Kashmiri Shaivism took me to Bali, actually.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And you know, I actually spent some time in an ashram there, and you know, you're right. It has influenced a lot of South and Southeast Asia, and even Tibet. So, and the reason why that has happened is because, as I said, Kashmir Shaivism is not something that stands alone. It has evolved from some base, and it has resulted in the evolution of many other things.
Yeah.
You know, so one of the things, because as I said, this is all a part of tantric wisdom that actually happened all over India. But the Kashmir Shaivism part of it, which took it to the highest level of sophistication, happened in Kashmir, and that also informed Tibetan Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism is a newer form of Buddhism, you know, which happened, you know, almost a couple of thousand years after Buddha, and it happened in Tibet, and it basically was a Kashmiri scholar who went from what is called, you know, he was in the Kashmir, you know, Pakistan occupied Kashmir side, and he moved from there and went to Tibet and founded the Tibetan Buddhism. So even in Laos and Cambodia and you know, the Far Eastern region, and even Indonesia, it really informed their temple architecture, their you know, their wisdom in general. So they still follow some of that, actually, even today, in, for example, Bali.
Yeah. So
And
what?
of course, I think in India also, after it actually died in Kashmir, it did not die in India. It actually kept influencing India, and what you see of Hinduism today is basically influenced in a big way by Kashmiri Shaivism, not only in the dharmic or the philosophical kind of realm, but also even in the, whether you believe it or not, even in the art and dance of today, it's informed by some of the work that was done by those scholars, Kashmiri Shaivism scholars.
I think that was amazing, but one question that did just come up as you were speaking, which kind of ties into, you know, if, you know, once kind of Kashmir, like the Hindus from Kashmir started slowly going away, but the influence of Kashmiri Shaivism still stayed there. What do you think is so significant of Kashmiri Shaivism that is influential for folks to still keep this practice going? What is there in Kashmiri Shaivism that folks like me or like the younger generation don't know about?
Yeah, actually, I think I would say there were like three answers to that question. One is the fact that Kashmir Shaivism has got solutions.
Mm-hmm.
How to realize one's true self. And once you realize that one's true self, you achieve the siddhis, your name. You achieve the siddhis, which means that you achieve some uh, capabilities that you can't have if you don't have that self-realization.
Mm.
You actually are able to actuate a lot of your potentials that all of us are having. All humans have those potentials, because we are all God. We are all that supreme consciousness,
Yes.
and we have all the potentials that supreme consciousness has, except that it's all hidden from us. And once we do a self-realization using the techniques that are there in the Kashmiri Shaivism scriptures, you can actually get to that level of sophistication, your level of your realization of your capabilities, and
Mm.
you can become siddhi, you can become siddhas. So that's one answer. The other answer is that because uh, some things were actually kind of diffused, some of the things diffused into other schools, like Advaita, like Advaita Vedanta.
Yeah.
Swami Shankaracharya, when Shankaracharya went to Kashmir, he actually acquired a lot of knowledge from Kashmir Shaivism, and basically it diffused into Advaita Vedanta, and his school basically flourished as what is called Sri Vidya school now, and there are millions of people who are adherents of Sri Vidya, which was the last of the 9 schools of Kashmir Shaivism. So it
Yeah.
survives. The Kashmir Shaivism survives today, mostly in the form of Sri Vidya, which is practiced in southern India.
Mm-hmm. There's a few things you said that I actually have a few follow-up questions, but first one I actually want to ask, which I think most youngsters are always questioning, and it's a hot topic. It's like, I think you mentioned something about spiritual conscience, that we're all gods.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on science versus spirituality, or science versus miracle, or science versus Kashmiri Shaivism? Like, is there a
Mm-hmm.
tie there? Is there what do you know what I'm talking about? Like, you know how people are
Yeah,
like, no, I believe in science, no, I believe in miracles. Where does Kashmiri
yeah,
Shaivism fall
yeah,
fall in
yeah,
this
yeah.
question?
Actually, I'll tell you, this is related to my journey also. When I was in my 20s, I was given this book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Yogananda. And, I was doing physics, and I was like in the middle of quantum mechanics and, materialistic studies and stuff. So I knew that science and all. I was really embedded in that. I read that book and I said, "Oh, this is all miracles." I don't believe in it. I read like a few pages, maybe a couple of chapters or something, and then they left it. So, and then I thought this is all humbug. But then as I learned through my life and got exposed to more and more technology and started talking to some people, including the guy who invented microprocessors at Intel. His name is Federico Fagin. I think talked to you offline sometimes about it. But when I talked to him, and he was trying to put consciousness into the microprocessors and computers, and he did a lot of study, and he said, "Oh wow, I can't do it because it's beyond me, because I'm living in this world which is governed by physical materialistic laws, and I have to really transcend all of that and get to that level of supreme consciousness, which is only experiential. You cannot really create that in a chip or something. It's an experiential thing, but all of us have that experiential capability, because all of us have that consciousness in us. And because the true potential of that is hidden from us, we actually get entangled in the world of materialism, and we never really reach that potential. So uh, I think the answer to your question is something. It's quite difficult to without sharing the models that they have, the true concept, the key concepts of Kashmir Shaivism. I will not be able to explain to you exactly how uh, you know that that transformation happens, and how we in this living in this world actually get to that realization where It's not that far. We are human, we are consciousness, and we don't realize it. Right now, when I'm talking to you and you are hearing me, we are able to do that only because we are conscious people. I don't have consciousness, I won't be able to speak to you.
Yeah.
I won't be able to feel any emotion when you ask me a question. I won't be able to formulate my answers. I won't be able to, say anything. I won't be able to feel any pain. I won't be able to feel any happiness. I won't be able to do anything. Express, love and compassion. I won't be able to do any of that stuff. So all of those capabilities are already in us,
Yeah.
but higher level of capabilities will come if we are able to transcend beyond this level, because we are actually veiled from that true consciousness or true self that we have. And those meditations and techniques, in Kashmiri we say
Mm.
upayas, those are actually taught in Kashmiri Shaivism, and
Yeah.
they are again very sophisticated methods to do that self-realization, and that's what makes it so attractive, this Kashmiri Shaivism in today's times, because a lot of people are, and it's not meant for Kashmiris only, it's meant for everybody. Any human being can do it. There's no creed, caste, religion, or anything like that. Anybody can actually practice those and realize one's true self. And again, there are some rules, there are some um, you know means that you can use. As I said, wopais, they're called in English, they will be means. There are 3 different kinds of means, and each one of those has many categories. And for everyone, because we are all different, one of those works, the others don't work, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that Kashmiri Shaivism has a few values, and another interesting question that one of our followers actually asked us is that they said that they would love to understand any practical benefits of Kashmiri Shaivism that one can apply to living in this current world, this modern world. So, any values from Kashmiri Shaivism that you can, shed some light on for this question?
Yeah, that's actually the purpose why I wanted to actually do this. I wanted to kind of share why it is so relevant for today, particularly when we are seeing all these crises happening in front of us, and how we can manage our way out of it, particularly, climate crisis and all that stuff. So I think there are. So I would, for example, tell you that, after Intel, I moved to climate action. And I'm now in climate action for last 3 years, and I have been doing some work on workforce development and innovation ecosystems for basically accelerating the innovation required for climate action, so that our 100th Earth Day in 1970 or 2070 is better than where we are today.
Mm.
So when I see that, and when I'm kind of doing this workforce development and innovation ecosystem and all that stuff, I see that science and technology alone will not be able to do this for us.
Yeah.
We'll not be able to get out of this kind of situation just with science and technology if we keep that capitalistic last 200-300 years of capitalistic mindset, where we are all focused on making profits next month and basically extracting everything of the earth. And so that kind of a approach has caused this crisis today. And without addressing that fundamental thing where we are all selfish and not looking at the common good, this Kashmir Shaivism concepts help us to kind of really transcend into that kind of a level and become more like meta humans, where we get out of this capitalistic kind of a approach, which we have been all trained for the last 300 years.
Yeah.
And in this process, we have lost our indigenous wisdom, whether it is in the Native American world, or whether it's in the Australian American, Native Australian world, or whether it is in India. We have lost that indigenous wisdom, and Kashmir Shaivism is one of those indigenous wisdoms which has miraculously survived.
Mm, yeah.
Most of these others have not survived, unfortunately. But it's not that we have a monopoly in Kashmir on this wisdom. This wisdom was all over the world. But because of all this industrial revolution, which actually made us all so capitalistic and dominated and exterminated all this wisdom in all parts of the world, we have basically made a lot of materialistic progress, but we made a mess of the planet and the human condition.
Mhm. I think one thing that kind of stood out for me is that how you said that, because of the genocide, we also lost our land, we also lost our home and all of that. What I think I kind of want to flash back to your time in Kashmir. Was there importance of Kashmiri Shaivism in your life at that time? Or just in any other, if you could just see in Kashmir, if you can just think of the time there, would you see values of Kashmiri Shaivism being taught to you, or the people around you, anyone younger than you? What was the importance of Kashmiri Shaivism at that time?
Yeah, I would say that as far as my personal journey is concerned, it was zero. I did not have any exposure to Kashmir Shaivism. In fact, I used to tell my mom that we Kashmiri Pandits are living in dark ages, and we do all these rituals and stuff like this has no meaning. This is like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
And just like youngsters today are asking those questions, and I think Kashmir Shaivism basically explains what we were doing. And but the good thing is that we actually kept doing. Our parents, our mothers, kept doing it over those 1,700 years. They kept doing it, and that was the only reason why it survived. They kept those books, those scriptures hidden in their attics, and they kept doing their rituals, even if they did not understand what they were doing. Very few people understood it, and they kept it like a secret.
Yeah.
Because if they revealed that, they would be exterminated, or their books would be, their scriptures would be taken away and burnt. So we it was a miracle that we actually kept the tradition and those rituals alive. In fact, I would be covering in more detail about how that whole thing happened and what were the reasons why there were some milestones in the history where we were able to retain that thing, and otherwise it would have been gone, just like what happened to Native Americans. It would have been gone.
Yeah. And for actually anyone listening right now, if you've been paying attention to what Vijay is saying, he's not going as in depth. And the reason for that is that a very exciting announcement that we are going to be hosting a Kashmiri Shaivism workshop series that will be launching at the end of March 2024. There will be 7 workshops, all regarding different topics of Kashmiri Shaivism. And folks from all walks of life are welcome. You do not have to be a Kashmiri Pandit. You do not have to be a Hindu. You can be anyone from anywhere. We would really love for everyone to join. This workshop is free of charge, and registration will be coming out soon. But just keeping a track of time, Vijayji, I think one question I have, which is probably something you can answer personally, which you have been, is there a value of Kashmiri Shaivism that you specifically, I don't want to say but you use in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, actually, I do. In fact, every day in the morning, I do practice, which is my version of a standard practice that is given. There are
Yeah.
different energies or different. See, we are all a set of energies, and I'm going to explain in my webinar series some of the science behind that. You know, the energies that I'm talking about. We have a scripture or a book called Spandakarika,
Mm.
which was done in about 8th century time frame. So there was which basically talks about how we're all about vibrations and energy. And if you look at the physics of today, it really completely coincides with that. But it's even more sophisticated than what the physics of today tells us. It's much more sophisticated, in fact. And that's why I think that it informs some of the uh, roadblocks or some of the barriers that are there in front of the science today, which they are not able to cross because they are stuck in the material world. And the physics and the technology that we have today is actually based on this materialistic world. But if we go and transcend that, according to this concept of Kashmir Shaivism, which I'm going to share some of it, we will be able to get into this transcendental kind of a phase.
Mm.
And a lot of people have done that. A lot of people have done that in many parts of the country and world, all over the world. In fact, some of them have nothing to do with Kashmir Shaivism. They don't even know about Kashmir Shaivism, but they once they understand these concepts of Kashmiri Shaivism, they can realize, oh, this is exactly what happened to me, and this is how it happened to me. And
Yeah.
because they have experienced that kind of a transformation, and they relate to it. And some of those people include this guy who I was talking about, the guy who invented microprocessors and then set up two companies. One of them is like making billion. He's a billionaire here in Sausalito. And then there are others, like the person who wrote the Tao of Physics. What's his name? Capra. What was his first name? Um, yeah, he wrote Tao of Physics back in '70s, and he also lives in Berkeley, and he also has got that experience, and he's also kind of achieved great heights because he got those additional powers. So as far as I'm concerned, I actually utilized some of these practices that are actually shown in our Kashmir Shaivism scriptures. I use some of these practices to really do my day-to-day job in climate action. So I'm part of this a bridge that we have formed between all of government, Department of Energy and Commerce and Defense and all, with all of the battery industry in the United States. And in this bridge, we have to do a lot of things, big things, and I practice this every day in the morning to really kind of give me that extra inspiration of the field of all possibilities. Everything is possible, nothing should kind of deter me from giving up.
Mm.
And how I invoke my energies to really be able to solve today's problem. I actually am getting inspired. I get inspirations from that. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm a siddha and I have reached that level, but I do get at my humble kind of a contribution. I can make some contributions that I would not have been able to make earlier. I
Yeah.
could not have thought about doing some things that I had, 3 years ago, I would not have been able to think about it. But now I've been able to do some of those things
Mm.
because, I keep that grounding always in place where I'm able to tap into that field of all possibilities and
Absolutely. And
not get deterred.
yeah, and I think regardless if one does not follow Kashmiri Shaivism, I think that grounding in your life is necessary regardless. And I think, staying humble and just and being down to earth. Just going back, I think you mentioned Kapra. I think that his name is Fridjof or something,
Free job copper,
right?
yeah, free job copper.
He
Yeah.
actually I lived in SF for 2 years, and he's taught at San Francisco State as well as UC
Mhm.
Berkeley, and as well as what do you call it? UC Santa Cruz.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
I know he has done his PhD in theoretical physics. So
Physics, yes.
is there a correlation between Kashmiri Shaivism and theoretical physics? Do you think there is?
Oh, yes. I definitely think there is because, if you, the field of all possibilities is theoretical physics.
Yeah.
When I said field of all possibilities, see, where quantum mechanics there is a Schrodinger equation, right? Schrodinger equation is basically an equation where it has got an infinite number of solutions, right? But one of those solutions actually materializes, you know and but those solutions are in field of all possibilities. If you are on this side of the wall, there is a possibility that you can be on the other side of the wall without walking from here to there.
Yeah.
you know so it's physics. It's not like, I'm not talking about mumbo jumbo, it's physics.
Yeah.
And but if you have that siddhi, you will be on the other side of the wall.
Yeah.
And when I started learning all of that stuff, certainly that autobiography of the yogi that I had thrown away after reading first a couple of chapters, I read again last year, and it made a lot of sense now. Certainly
Hmm.
it made a lot of sense. In fact, last week I had gone down to San Diego for my conference in again, climate action part. And I made it a point to go to that particular place where Swami Yogananda actually establishes self-realization center. It's called self-realization center. It's on the Pacific, overlooking the Pacific. And I went there. I looked at I got some of his books also. I mean, additional new books and stuff. So he whatever was looking like miracle and whatever was looking like magic certainly started making sense to me, because I saw that theoretical physics, as you said, I saw that correlation between theoretical physics and the real life
Yeah.
in Kashmir based according to Kashmiri Shaivism. So I will be able to show some of that actually as part of the thing I have. In fact, these are the things that I want to actually share. My presentation is not about history of Kashmir or history of
Yeah,
Kashmir
absolutely.
Shaivism as such. It's more about how it is relevant to the present day life,
Yeah.
and how it gives us additional powers. And as I said, your name Siddha, you become Siddha because you are able to control your faculties. You are able to. There are like elements. We have according to Kashmir Shaivism, there are 36 elements.
Hmm.
And according to all other Hindu philosophies, there are 25 elements.
Yeah.
Those 36 additional 11 elements, they give you that additional perspective on what, how to be in the transcendental kind of state and how to derive powers from the transcendental state,
Hmm.
because it is a field of all possibilities, the transcendental state. And quantum mechanics also, the Schrodinger equation, it has got field of all possibilities, but what actually happens based on the conscious observer of the phenomenon. That
Yeah.
is physics, that's current physics, you
Right.
know. And without that conscious observer, nothing materializing, there is no existence.
Hmm.
So consciousness is the basic thing. It's the foundation on which this universe exists. Without that consciousness, there's nothing that exists.
Yeah. That's, uh, I mean, that is amazing. Um, I think everyone who is listening, I mean, there are definitely a lot of people who are interested in these workshop series, as I saw on our Instagram story. So I'm very excited to see what these 7 workshops will entail, considering it's not about the history of Kashmir. I think we've all learned a lot over the past couple of years. I would love for Kashmiri Shaivism to be the new hot topic amongst the youngsters or just anyone who's able to join. I do, considering we just have a couple of more minutes, if you can shed some light on here. I think this is a question so many people have actually asked, as Hindus, as Kashmiri Pandits, why do we eat meat? I don't know if this is a question you can answer, but is there anything written or not written, or is there an answer to why do we eat meat within, Kashmiri Shaivism? I don't know if this has anything to do with Kashmiri Shaivism, but a follower has asked us this.
Yeah. There are let me just tell you that one of the, I mean, most recent Kashmir Shaivite was Swami Lakshmanju, and he did not eat meat, and he would never allow any of his people to eat meat. In
Okay.
fact, a couple of months back, I was in Kashmir along with some 50 odd followers of Kashmir, of Swami Lakshmanju. Most of them were like American, European, Australian, Brazilian. These people were there, so with me. So they all observed that for those 15 days that they would not eat meat. But at the same time, his guru and his guru, they ate meat.
Yeah.
They ate meat. And when somebody asked him, uh, he said that, oh, when you are at that transcendental level, nothing matters. It doesn't matter,
Okay.
you know, because you're not doing, you're in a different state. It's called Jivan Mukt. You have become Jivan Mukt, and you are living in this world while you are fully aware of yourself, or your true consciousness, you have fully self-realized yourself, and every moment, whatever you're doing with that thing. And killing or not killing, or because this existence, this whole prakriti, what we call prakriti, is not really real. What is real is this consciousness.
Hmm.
So whether you eat or not, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any difference. Whether so, once you are in that kind of a mindset where you reach that self-realization, it doesn't matter whether you eat or not eat. It doesn't matter whether you kill or not kill. In fact, you may have to, like Mahabharata says, you have to kill in order to keep the dharma, right? You have to kill. So it all depends on the context and what level you're at,
Yeah.
and everything is okay. Everything is okay. In Kashmir Shaivism, that's the thing. In Kashmir Shaivism, there's a leftist movement. There are 9 schools of Kashmir Shaivism, and there are leftist movements and there are rightist movements in Kashmir Shaivism. All of that are all allowed, and some of those are so extreme leftist movements. Kaula, many of us are Kauls, right? cola system, they go into the orgies, and they have uh, they go to these shamshan ghats, that cremation grounds, and they basically have all kinds of things there. They are very extreme kind of living, because they are gone beyond this, prakriti, this material thing, because they know that this is all not real. Our real self, the only reality is that supreme consciousness.
Yeah.
And but it's not as simple as that. Kashmir Shaivism actually makes it more sophisticated than that view. It gives a lot of meaning to this reality also, because it says that this reality is a manifestation of Shiva in the form of Parvati. So all the energies that you and I have, whether positive or negative, they're all manifestation of Shiva as Parvati,
Wow.
as
Okay.
Shakti. So Shiva Shakti is the reality.
Hmm.
Shiva is the transcendental state, and Shakti is the reality in this world. So all the energies that you and I have, or the atoms have, or the quarks have, those are all energies coming as manifestation of Shiva. And
Amazing.
it's a true thing, and the sophistication around these philosophies, and the rigor, and the models that they have shown, these books, these scriptures are so rich that people have spent 10, 20, 30, 40 years studying them,
Yeah.
and still they have not been able to do it. But there are some people who don't have to study anything, and
Hmm.
that too is part of Kashmir Shaivism, because they get this Kashmiri, we say, anugrah. you know
Yes.
you are God today. I am God today. You are God today, right now. So in a flash, in a split second, I can realize my true self and become that siddha, and reach that supreme reality level,
Hmm.
and be all knowing and all doing kind of thing, get
Yeah.
all the powers. So yeah, anyway, I mean, I think this is a topic that is going to unfold itself as part of these lectures. But as I said, really learning this field, it takes decades.
I can
And
see that.
yeah, it takes decades, but at the same time, you can do this realization in a second if you have that anugrah.
I agree.
And i
Yes.
have i have examples I have examples of that in my presentation, where
Mhm.
people have gotten that in a second.
Yeah, and I'm hoping anyone who is listening to this podcast right now is very excited to join these workshop series, regardless of where they are. My last question before I give it back to you to kind of wrap this up is, I think I also have an answer to this, but I wanted to ask you. Another one of our followers has asked us is, does Kashmiri Shaivism have any exclusive dances, like how in Gujarat they have Garba? I would want to say it's like Shiv Tandav, but I want you to also like let us know is there an exclusive dance for Kashmiri Shaivism?
Actually, the Shiv Tandav is, of course, the original one,
Yeah.
but I would actually answer it like this. Kashmir Shaivism has taught dance to the world, to India, you know, and your Bollywood dances are actually rooted in Kashmir Shaivism, whether you believe it or not.
Okay.
And I will tell you why.
Yes, please.
Because Abhinav Gupta actually did lots of work. He wrote many books, and one of the books he wrote was Abhinav Bharati. And what that is, basically, it's a commentary on Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, which was done 1,000 years before him, or
Mm.
more than 1,000 years before him. But it was too difficult for general people to follow. And Abhinav Gupta actually he made commentary on that. He made it like, like calculus without tears. So he made it like without tears.
Okay.
So he made it like for common people. And Karnataka music, Karnataka dance, Hindustani music, Hindustani dance, whether it's Kathak or Kuchipudi or Bharatanatyam, they're all rooted in the work that was done by Abhinav Gupta in Srinagar.
Mm.
And you can read. I have actually attended some of the online courses from NCRT or whatever that's called, UPSC. Sorry, UPSC, where they learn this IAS level, studies. They do all the IAS level studies, where they have talked about this Natya Shastra and Abhinav Bharati, and how that informs the current day northern and southern Indian dance and music.
Mm.
And whether you believe it, I was completely mind boggled by that. So, but at the same time, because Kashmir was taken over by the foreign conquests, which did not allow any dances and music,
Yeah.
much of it died.
Yeah.
And what survived was some of these Hatha yoga survived somewhere, and some of it went to, like I told you, the Sri Vidya went to South India, and some of the Nath Sampradaya, like UP Chief Minister, what is his name, Adityanath, he is from the Nath Sampradaya, and that is also informed by some of the things that came from Kashmir Shaivism, actually.
Yeah.
His lineage actually comes from that. So it has shaped the world. It has shaped the India of today in many different ways. And I just talked about Natya Shastra, and I talked about dance and music, but then there is also a lot of spiritual traditions that have kind of come about. Even the ISKCON has gotten something from Abhinav Gupta's work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bhakti movement, because Abhinav Gupta introduced the Bhakti concept and Shanta concept in the so-called Rasa theory. So
Mm.
those things inform some of the later day developments. Bhakti movement happened in India later, like this Sikhism and all these other, even Kabir and all. That was much of that was actually influenced by the work that was done by Abhinav Gupta, but it was all killed in Kashmir, but it percolated down into the rest of the country,
Mm.
in the villages, in the hinterland.
Got it. Okay. If you had to like on a timeline, when would you say like the Abhinav Gupta and all this what was the name? Nati Shastra that you said?
Nati Shastra was it was done by Bharat Muni. It was about 2000, more than 2000 years ago, which was like before Christ,
Yeah.
and then Abhinav Gupta was about 1000 years after Christ. It was
Okay.
like 1025 when he died.
Yeah. So we can say that the dance styles are very old, and that they've been there
Yes, yes,
for a long time and ingrained in our culture and our dance system.
yes. Dance, all those ragas and styles, and all of those things are actually rooted in that.
Perfect. Well, I think this brings us to the end of this podcast. I can say that I have learned a lot, and I'm actually glad I kind of did some research before coming into this podcast as well. I'm very excited for these workshop series. I know I'll be there as a moderator as well, and to help out in whichever way. But I can already say that I'm very excited to learn more and more about this Kashmiri Shaivism. But before we end the podcast, Vijayji, do you have any final wrapping up words for our
Yeah,
listeners?
I would maybe spend whatever time I have. I would spend to kind of give you a sneak peek into the outline of what I'm going to be presenting.
Absolutely.
So what I'll be doing is I'll basically start with an appetizer, where I'm going to show some of the pictures and stuff from my visit, along with these 50 people that I had gone to Kashmir to attend some of the Kashmir Shaivism related, functions, and visited many places. So I'll share some of the places in Kashmir which are still related to Kashmir Shaivism, and they're still kind of out there. They give us energy about our past in Kashmir Shaivism. Then I'm going to talk about you know why the 10th century Kashmir was like Silicon Valley of those days,
Yeah.
and why Kashmir Shaivism was the key part of that level or that achievement.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to talk about how it survived, and it's a fascinating story about how Kashmir Shaivism survived.
Correct.
Why didn't it go the way most other things went? Like Native Americans, or Australian. Why didn't it happen there? So that miracle story is very fascinating. I'm going to also talk about the key concepts of Kashmir Shaivism and how they have shaped India of today. And I just gave a few examples about this dance and all, but there, besides dance, there is a lot of other stuff that has been,
Yeah.
in a spiritual realm, that has been shaped in India. And then I'll also, uh, you know, talk about how the current science and technology, neurobiology and cognitive science and all of that, how that is being is getting so much attention, or Kashmir Shaivism is getting so much attention among those scholars, those physicists and cognitive scientists, teaching in Berkeley and they, in Irvine or MIT or places like that, how they are actually kind of seeing the value of what is there in that. And I just told you about that. I keep telling you about that microprocessor inventor in Intel, who's also now studying this stuff. And I had very close conversation with him, which I can talk about.
Yeah.
And lastly, I'm going to talk about how science and technology and human condition today is seeing a crisis, and then how we can come out of that crisis using some of the concepts of Kashmiri Shaivism, and that's what makes it relevant for the future. I think we are at the Copernicus moment that existed in Europe of 12th or 14th century, 12th to 14th century. At that time, when Copernicus and Galileo were being persecuted for saying that Earth is not at the center of the solar system. so those things are happening in science today.
Yeah.
And this consciousness studies, which are informed by Kashmiri Shaivism to a large extent, are actually shaping some of the change. And I will also talk about the 2020 Nobel Prize, 2022 Nobel Prize, which are those Nobel Prize winners, how they are talking about this topic today. And I'm going to share some of the links. I obviously won't be sharing those YouTube videos, but I'm going to share some of the things there. And I'm going to use some of the work that the global Kashmir Pandit diaspora, they did a series of, it's called what, Kashmir Story or something, which happened, I think, 2020 to 21. So 1 month, they did a lot of videos, and some of those actually inform how different villages in Kashmir are associated with the evolution of Kashmiri Shaivism and the evolution of this. So I'm going to basically cover many topics in this, but that's why it's a seven
workshops. Yeah.
7 workshops. But it's not about mythology.
Yeah, it's not myths. Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And I think based on what you've said so far, it seems like there are many resources that are already available to the public that it seems like not many know. So I'm actually very excited that you will be sharing this with us.
I will be sharing this.
Yes, but with that, again, thank you so much, Vijay ji, for coming on today's podcast. I am, again, very excited to see how these workshop series go along. Everyone who is listening, please keep following KUA Youth on Instagram to make sure that you are updated with when these workshops are happening and you know when registration will be dropping. So be on the lookout for that. And I will see everyone on the next episode. Thank you so much again, Vijay ji.
Thank you, Siddhi. Really appreciate your facilitation of this.
Thank you. Namaskar.